Mark
Their own
Garagos,
coroner
I
said
am
that.
so glad you brought that point up, because that's why I asked Robi Ludwig on the program tonight. She's not only a psychotherapist, but she also literally wrote the book, Till Death Do Us Part.
Yes.
Love, Marriage, and the Mind of the Killer Spouse. Mark Garagos brings up a great point.
Yes.
13 years later, we've all had a chance to take a lot of deep breaths, cool
That's
down,
right.
maybe be a little bit more circumspect about all the evidence in the case. This guy was hated. He was no Stephen Avery. Everybody seemed to love Stephen Avery. Everybody was boosting Stephen Avery, hoping for the best. Nobody feels that way about Scott Peterson. Does that make a difference, and why is that?
Well, I think in part because Scott Peterson had an affair. Lacey Peterson's parents also at one point thought Scott was very guilty and turned against him. And here's this very good-looking, slick character. All of a sudden, his mistress seemed to turn against him. So the story looked really bad. It looked really bad, and ultimately he was convicted. And it was a story that we all lived with day in and day out. But Mark is absolutely right. 10 years later, there's a different feeling, new eyes, as you mentioned. Here's a very good-looking guy who is on death row. And so I think everybody wants to make sure that justice is served and that the wrong person is not in prison. And there's this other psychological piece where if someone is really good-looking, it's very hard for us to believe that they're sinister and dangerous.
Casey, Jody, OJ, the list goes on.
That's right.
And on and
That's
on.
right.
I'll tell you what, I can't wait, and I'm just going to plug this program again, A&E, The Murder of Lacey Peterson. It's a series, and the next installment is tomorrow night at 10 o'clock Eastern. They're doing a great job. It's fascinating, and I can hear you. I can hear you people out there saying, God, Ashleigh, shut up and let that guy fry. I understand how you feel. Don't forget, there's always two sides to a story, and we do have a constitution in this country. And if there is something that's exculpatory, doesn't everyone deserve to be heard? I am no fan of Scott Peterson nor his behavior, but I am a fan of evidence and I am a fan of process. And for that reason, I'm so thankful to Ted Rowlands, Detective John Bueller, to Mark Garagos, and to Robi Ludwig for helping us sort through this. And I don't think it's the end of this conversation. Real quick, Robi Ludwig, psychotherapist. No regrets. Is that what surprises you on this one?
It does. Here's a girl who probably had denied pregnancy syndrome, and she's young, and she didn't want this baby. She didn't know she was having it.
21. I mean,
well,
come
but
on.
mentally young and figured magical thinking. I can get rid of the baby impulsively, and it's like it never happened. A fear of losing love of the people around them. So it happens. I hope she gets treatment.
Thank you, Robi. Thank you. We're back right after this.